So, in this class what I will do is slightly switch to a slightly non-technical, but equally important topic. Non-technical in sense, till now we have been talking about subjects which can be quantified, there is a basis, there is a theory behind it, you can learn. This is slightly vague, as you can see, preparing for the job interviews is a bit of a subjective matter, but it is of some interest. So, some of what I am going to say is my own experience plus my picking up from people who are currently recruiting people like that. From there I have picked up some ideas and I am going to send it to them. Use this like a broad guideline and then maybe it is of help to you, so on. The way to plan is when you are applying for jobs is, again it is something which we earlier talked, is you will have to by and large decide what is your major goal and a subsidiary goal, because nobody wants to have all eggs in the same basket. So, maybe what we should do is that first you should have a predominant aspiration, what kind of a industry you want to work on and have a backup on that. So, the three types, like I said, these are manufacturing companies. Enough we have discussed what do manufacturing companies do. EPCM companies, of course Mr. Venkat will also speak actually as a practitioner who is recruiting EPCM companies, he will talk more detail. And technology development, like I said, technology development I always underplay, at least in India. If you are looking for jobs, there are not many people who will come and talk about technology, but maybe why should you talk only about India? Actually the world is your opportunity, right. So, keep that. So, first thing is what type of a job you want to apply for, major one, backup one, keep it. If you are doing it in India, Indian based companies, there are two types of broad companies, what I call as public limited companies and the other is government owned companies. There is a small difference between the two. In fact, public limited companies definition is any company that is listed in the stock exchange market. It can be also government owned, but what I want to make a difference by government owned is, let us say the difference between Tata is a publicly owned company, it listed, but it is not government owned, compared to let us say Engineers India Limited, it is an EPCM company Delhi based, they are predominantly held by government of India, they are also publicly listed, EIL shares are there. The difference between the two is the approaches that they have for recruitment of people and for career planning and for job rotation is significantly different between these two type of companies. There are pros and cons, so we will discuss. So, you will have to broadly decide what is your strategy in terms of nature of the company that you are looking for, nature of the job you are looking for, A, backup B, and also what kind of a, is it government or is it non-government you are looking for. These are again generalizations, so there could be exceptions. In general, the government related companies, examples I gave is EIL is one example, NTPC, you have heard about NTPC which is in power generation, you would have heard about BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals, you would have heard about Indian Oil Corporation, BPCL, HPCL, this kind of companies. Generally the rules there are a bit rigidly made. So, they are more rule bound and procedure bound in all their activities, they have to be, because at the back of the mind they do not want tomorrow somebody charging them with favoritism or being partial to somebody else. So, these are made, general rules are made and they are kind of very strictly followed with hardly any flexibility on the part of the recruiter to deviate, whereas non-government companies have a lot of flexibility. So, there are pros and cons. In one case, if you impress the guy who is coming for the interview, in non-government companies you have a very good chance of getting selected. Similarly, if you want to negotiate your terms and conditions after upon selection, there is a lot more flexibility there, whereas in government companies things are fairly tight and secure. This is at the time of being recruited. Same story continues post recruitment. After you join the company, then after 1 year, 2 years, the kind of a jobs that you would like to do, the kind of a variations or across job rotations that you have, again the same approach continues. lot more flexibility in non-government companies, a little bit rigid in government companies. So, keep that in mind. So, that is what is captured in this. You can, I am going to post it, you can see. There are pluses and minuses, this is what you have to keep it in mind, and your own aptitude, nature, etc. by now you would have had some idea. You can talk to your family members, friends who you trust, and then fine tune it, what kind of a person you are, and try to do a bit of a matching between the two, it always helps. I have predominantly all my career, working life, I have spent in non-government companies. So, I can speak with a lot more assurance as compared to what is happening in government companies, which I only hear from some of my colleagues and repeat it there. The last part what I have said here, the flip side of the non-government companies, usually called private sector companies, I want to tell you that. These days when you get recruited, people get recruited for a job and then you are given some title, some position, right. Positions can be senior engineer, can be technical analyst, whatever it is, some designation is given. In non-government companies, be aware of this, these titles practically do not mean much, because there will sometimes there will be a tendency for these companies to come out with fancy titles, but actually the job that you do may not reflect what is the job title there. So, it is better not to get carried away by the job titles, especially when you are searching for private sector companies. Go through the real what you are expected to do in that thing and then make up your mind. So, that is one point. The way I will do it is, I will ask you to refer back to the organograms which I wrote, I think in the second or third class. Typical manufacturing company, I wrote a organization chart. Similarly, for typical EPCM companies, I wrote typical technology development companies. Now, when you as you start preparing for the job interview, etc., spend some time, read through them and try to brush it up for that. Now, in manufacturing companies, which I will take it is, these companies manufacturing processes, chemical processes especially run round the clock. You have to, you can't start the plant and stop the plant, particularly large plants, it will be running round the clock, which means it is 3 shift operations. So, the plant, actually speaking, most of the plants, chemical plants which are continuous, really are operated by the operators. Now, these operators, I am broadly using the designation called operators, there also there will be titles, fancy titles, process technician, somebody calls it, whatever it is. These are the guys who generally do not have engineering degrees. It is rare for a company to find people who are ready to join as operators after an engineering degree. So, usually these are either chemistry graduates or any graduate in science, or sometimes there is a parallel like diploma courses are being run, which are let us say 2.5 3 years, which some parts of our engineering aspects are taught, more like rule of thumbs. They will not get into detailed concepts and things like that. So, but it's all the basics are taught. So, these are diploma holders. So, most of the operations are carried out round the clock in shifts by these operators. I am saying this because do not dismiss them. They may not be highly qualified the way that you are qualified, but because they are doing the job in and out, their career aspirations also are not that these days you ask a person who is freshly being recruited, what is your ambition, if you ask him, he is also confident enough to tell you in the next 10 years I want to be the CEO of the company and all that. It is seen to be a good thing that if you are very confident, if you speak aggressively and things like that. Operators, do you think any operators wants to be the CEO? Even if you offer him, he will say thank you very much, I am very happy doing what I am doing there. But the plus point of that is these chaps are in continuous touch with the process, they live in that process. So, they are a very rich source of information, practical information. So, if you are joining in manufacturing organization, you will join above them, they accept it because first of all you have some qualifications which they do not have, they accept it, but they will also look at you saying that what these guys are bringing to the table. Naturally, any human being will look at it, what is this new boss supposed to do? You are a boss anyway. So, it is possible if you keep an open mind, this life is like that, I have something I can bring in, you can bring in something, we can do, it is a very good way to go. in manufacturing companies, when people come to recruit you for that kind of a jobs, they look for this aspect. In addition to others, they will also look at how well will you be able to network with this setup. If by nature if you are not very comfortable in so long, I mean within quotes, in discussing with people who are slightly less qualified, manufacturing is not a thing for you. You should seriously think, because your life is going to be that you will interact with them quite a lot. So, that is one thing that they look at it. The second thing in manufacturing companies is the last part, which is I want to say, is ability to handle short term pressure. Sometimes suddenly something will happen, in whichever way highly instrumented that plant is, some upsets will take place. That time your ability to quickly think through a solution which is safe and restore it back to normal, that is a very critical attribute. This is another skill, not every people have it. Some people, they do not do very well under pressure. If they are let alone, they can think and they can come out with good solutions, but you have to internally search yourself what kind of a person you are. I want to point out is be clear that in manufacturing jobs, at least initial entry level jobs next 4 or 5 years, this ability to think fast will be a key requirement. Again, your job, how it will be, it will follow the tunes of the organization's requirements, obvious point, right. Again and again, in fact, when I took the class about the cost, I used to say that sets the boundaries under which all people dance. So, in manufacturing companies, naturally what will be the focus will be output, quality is taken for granted, output maximum you can produce, better it is, cost, particularly variable cost. You are not going to talk about what is the investment cost of setting up the plant, etc. is not a very major, because the plant is already set up for you, but how can you optimize the cost is a very key requirement. So, this is the requirement of the thing. I am mentioning all this job requirement because internally you have to put a check mark against your skills, what you like to do, and then make up your mind of strategies, what kind of search you are going to do for that. EPCM job, here the focus will be not manufacturing cost only, it will be the second part. How can you build a plant which is efficient, safe, reliable, and also at the lowest possible cost for the customer concerned. So, the investment capital related cost come into the picture in EPCM company, because people really want to buy a plant for the overall cost. So, that will be the thing. The additional requirement will be the plant is going to be built for a particular cost, and it has to be built within a period of time, because people want to build the plant and get on with their job. So, the timely completion is a very high priority in this. So, accordingly the pressures will, how well you will be able to complete your networking, interacting with others, and making sure all the time that the budget and time are together going through will be the focus of any job that you choose. Specific jobs you can go to the organogram and see. Home office I talked about, process engineer I talked about, design engineer I talked about, project manager I talked about, all that will sing to this tune of this for that. One point which I want to again highlight is, sometimes this innate tendency for all of us is to do something creative and innovative, right. This is a very good thing. I mean, every human being wants to do slightly, your signature you want to put on something, slightly I want to do something. You have to play it with a bit of a caution. In EPCM companies, this innovation is double edged sword, because reliability, doing it on time takes 90% weightage, doing it innovatively whatever it means takes only 10%, because the guys who are there before you, who have set up the process, procedures and so on, have seen that method works, there is no doubt about it. So, they would be not very pleased about the fact that you are thinking of innovating all the time something different. That is not the context of that. So, if you are one of those whose major kick in life comes from being very innovative, you have to think EPCM job is the job for you. Thus, we have talked. The additional skills are, because you are going to do a variety of work on that. First of all, you must have technical skills very good, because that in fact technical skills should be better than the manufacturing guys, because in manufacturing at least you can lean on the operators, they are there at point of continuity. In EPCM companies you are going to take the decision at every stage. So, your technical skills obviously are taken for granted that they should be good. In addition to that, ability to network with other disciplines and see how your work fits in with their work in time, within budget, that is a key element of that. Now, with this background, preparations for the interview is, first step is target companies. You are going to look, it is always better to look for target companies. One standard method I believe is, whoever comes to the campus you apply for, that goes on, I will not get into that, that is a process existing there. Even then you should do some homework about those companies. I talked about the management analysis, the balance sheet analysis you do, look at the company's trend, what they have done in the past, are they on the upward trend, lower trend. So, you will get some idea about what the company's priorities are and then apply for whatever it is. In addition to that, it is also possible that you can directly write to the companies, there are to their HR department, there is contact us, there is always all the companies put it, there is some website, there is a link for you to apply. It is encouraged, you can write, you can apply, in which case you have to target very specifically whom you want to apply, and all this whatever I said will be helpful to you, accordingly you decide. Repeat is, first of all you should try to choose the base option, fallback option separate, base option is what you like to do you must focus on, and what you like to do takes time to come to a conclusion, but if you do it you will get to know, spend time, because your career, your life, all the other secondary, little bit of more money, fancy designations, location preferences, a ghar ka hai, this is very close to that, is number 2, number 3, number 4. First and foremost is I love, I like this, that is what you focus on. And then after you have targeted that company, try to understand from the company's point of view what they will be going through. This is not normally taught, but with your balance sheet analysis, and there is a chapter called management analysis and discussion, spend some time on reading it. It sets out at least one starting point of what the company is wanting to do, their plans, ambitions. So, if you read it, you will get a better idea about in that journey what can you do to do that. It will also help you to write the covering letter, etc. Because if you just say, sir, I want to apply for your company, here is my CV, if that company gets 1000 such things, some machine learning algorithm will read it and then select some keywords and go through. What are your chances? 1 in 1000. On the other hand, if you approach this way, your writing will also be much more focused, and the chances are, definitely I have seen this, you will attract the attention of the recruiter much better. At least the first step is very important, right. So, that is what you have to do that. Again, here what the manufacturing companies are looking for I have listed down, I have broadly said, you can go through this. This Mr. Venkat is going to talk specifically day after Thursday, much more detail on this. Now, this part I will get into. Usually the recruitment process varies from company to company, each company has some template which they follow, no reason logic excepting it works for that company. But broadly speaking, I presume there will be a written test, because when they come, if in the group, they would like to first do some initial screening. This is very important. They are not the written test is not to test your level of understanding, because these written tests are like the same level as GATE. In fact, they cog many of those GATE cut and paste. You think any guy in the company is trying to write questions? They just copy paste from somewhere else. So, it is a process for eliminating out of so many applicants, you want a convenient shortlist. It is the company's convenience of coming out with a written test, but if that is a written test, you go through the written test. Then sometimes they follow it by means of a personal interview. Here the difference comes between government companies, non-government companies. The government companies generally do not pay too much attention to the group discussion part, they do not, they go through the group discussion, personal interview, whatever you call it as. One part may be grouply talking, then separately one to one talking, personal interview. not much weightage is given, because they are worried about the fact favoritism may creep in. In a written test, same question paper is given to all. There is an answer set, because it is also not text written, it will be, you have to color the box. So, if you have a template 20 out of 40 like that, easily you can, if there is a number. So, if the recruiter goes back and tell the company, I went through the test, this is the result, it is accepted, no controversy. If he goes around and says, based on my discussion and interview, I think this fellow is very good, there is always a fear there can be favoritism. So, but they still go through, but keep that in mind. So, which company you are going through, the strategy that you have to adopt, next slide I am coming, but just keep that in mind in that. Now, group discussions. Some companies have group discussion, some companies do not. The idea of group discussion I am not impressed, because I think mostly companies are also getting out of that, is what my feedback is, but sometimes the company, because in the group what are you expected to see? There are 5 people sitting, you are asked to talk about a topic. The fellow who talks the longest time, is he preferred? We do not know, but if you do not at all talk, or you do not get an opportunity, you are a gentleman, so you wait for others to complete and then you want to speak, but the other fellow does not stop, he is talking, then you cannot talk also in between. Can it be taken as this chap is shy, so you will not speak? So, there are lots of mess in this group discussion. So, good companies, they do not generally go through that, but mass recruitment, something comes just for fun they have, I do not know, I am not a great favorite of the group discussion. So, you have to play by the ear. If the company says group discussion, you have to make your presence felt, more or less, that is what I will say, make it simple. Do not keep quiet for too long, and do not also try to sort of hog the whole show by just talking too much, just keep the conversation going. One should be able to get out of group discussion part. Personal interview is key, and especially non-government companies, they spend a lot of time on this. In this interview panel from the company side, when they come, usually it is a panel, not a single man. The panel will have 2 kinds of representation, 3 persons may be there, 5 persons may be there, normally 3 is the number. One of them will be representing the HR function at least, the other 2 could be from the technical functions there. So, the way that they go about doing that is, first the technical guy is asked to speak, ask questions, keep that in mind. Then the HR guy gets into the picture. There is a queue that will come. If the technical guy likes you or finds there is some potential in you, he will at some point of time pass it on to the HR guys. If he passes it on very fast, then maybe you have not done too well. So, that is a quick indication. Just 1-2 questions cursorily asked, you want to have anything like that, pass it on, that is a good indication. So, the sum and substance is initially focus not on the HR guy, but on the technical guy. Now, what this technical guy is wanting is, this is key, this is very key, watch it. Usually the guys who come on behalf of technical are people of manager level and above, who are actually operating the plants. If it is a manufacturing company, if it is an EPCM company, they will be kind of section heads who have some 25 people, 30 people working under them. So, they are somewhat what I call loosely as dadas. You understand what is dada? Chap who has got some power in the organization, not because of his designation, but because he has got some, he is a king, you can ask him something like that, this guy come. Normally they are very good, you do not get that reputation just like that in a company, you get a reputation because you have done something. So, these guys generally know whatever they have been doing it quite well. So, this is what you have to keep it in mind is, and nobody likes a very aggressive fellow, let me tell you that way. Any of us like very aggressive fellow on the other side? We want slightly a fellow who is a little soft, but not too soft, right. This seems to be the life in various relationships. You do not want the other fellow to be totally dominating, you will feel put off, but you also do not want the other guy to be totally meek, like it is you play a tennis game or a chess, you want the opponent to be slightly more or less matched, not wide gap. So, keep that in mind that the dada is coming. When they ask you, typically the question that they will ask you will not be based on any theory. They are not going to ask you, can you tell me how to optimize a heat exchanger network. They will typically ask you, for example, saying which subjects do you like, standard question. I like reaction engineering, I like kinetics, I like whatever. If you say I like mathematical modeling, you are in some difficulty, because that guy no way is in mathematical modeling. So, if you have indirectly without your knowledge you have put him under pressure, now he has to ask you in that, he may not. So, what he may do, pass on and make quick conclusion, oh this guy is mathematically oriented, theek hai chalo, it is not taken as a big deal for any jobs. So, choose what you want to say, because you want to control that and give something which is will keep the conversation going engaged, that is the key. You get my point? You are not, you cannot tell anything which is not true, that is not the purpose, but do not talk of some esoteric, the integer programming, there is a stochastic analysis to that which I am working on. This is, you are taking risk. If the interviewer is from manufacturing company, if the interviewer is from EPCM company, even if the interviewer comes from a technology development companies, because you have heard enough in the class we have gone through, no? They have with a purpose they develop all this, they are not on a general purpose algorithm. So, choose a topic, they ask you. So, you let us say you say heat transfer, I like heat transfer, neutral topic. Then follow up question will be, they will give you some example relating to heat transfer which he is familiar with and ask you to your comments are. For example, they may say there is a heat exchanger which is duty is this to this. Suddenly in the plant it is noticed that there is problem like this is coming like that, how will you go about solving? It is a classical example. Now you should know he knows a hell of a lot on that subject, because it is his background. He say no person however brilliant is, you will not know the entire thing, do not worry, that is not expected to, because he never expects you to match your skills. If you start matching your skills, he will get worried, but he wants to know how much you have understood. So, easier way and a sensible way is you interact with him, ask him more clarification questions. You say yes, I have heard like that, can I know what is this happening, that ask open ended questions, do not assume. Go back to the first assignment, I gave some example, right, heat recovery. Many of you jumped and went up to environmental protection, because you are very keen. That example now you relate back in an interview situation, when you are faced with that, engage conversation asking him, sir, before doing that can I ask you some questions like that. They all love it, because that gives an opportunity for them to know what you are thinking, to assess you. It also gives you time, not under pressure, keeping the conversation going, right. So, it is a very useful technique. Flow, when you say like that, is this kind of a thing, like that, whatever you know about heat exchangers, try to bring it out in the conversation, 2, 3, 4 minutes continue the conversation, and then you will get sufficient input coming from them. None of the interviewer will say, no, I cannot give you that answer, you are supposed to, nobody will say like that, take it from me. They will interact with you, you would have, by the time in the next 2-3 minutes you would have established a good understanding with each other, you will feel relaxed, he will feel more open to you, and then whatever you want to say about the project you go, clear. So, the idea is when the technical man focus on him, he asks you, usually they will tell you what you are very familiar with, come out with some topic which is common, do not choose uncommon topics, because I had a problem like this. When I was finishing my BTech, I was mathematically very brilliant, I considered myself great mathematician. In fact, my PhD I wanted to write for mathematics, motivated by Rutherford arrays and Bellman and all that. If I had started saying discrete dynamic programming versus continuous programming, how does it compare with Potteragin's maximum principle and all that, I would not have had a job in industry, maybe I would have had a job in some researcher somewhere else. So, even if your interests are different, come to the common ground is very important. So, look at what is, if it is a manufacturing company, let us say from IOCL, you know what IOCL is involved. We would have done some homework. IOCL is in the business mainly of exploration, refining, selling. They are also now gradually getting into renewables. You have read that management report, you will know what is that they are doing. If your interest matches with the renewables, you can pick up and say, sir, you know, I am interested in renewable energy. No, he gets interested. Like what? Like go through that. So, that is how we should engage with technical guys for the first few minutes. After that, they will pass it on to you for the HR guys, and whatever HR guy asks, you know how to answer. There is no preparation for this. Whatever they ask, you give an answer. In principle, why it is done like that is, the HR guys are given a brief, because I was the boss. Look at this person, he is technically cleared by the technical committee, he knows his subject. Then they say, if he is brought and put as an employee in our company, how well will he interact with others and get that, they are supposed to pass a judgment on. In fact, the operating guy himself will know, because he is the one who is actually dealing with people every day, right. He is the boss, really speaking, all people report to him. So, he would be the better judge, but for some company reasons, companies say HR separate it and say HR guy has to pass some judgment on this fellow. So, he will generally try to ask you questions like, give me an example where you have shown teamwork, give me an example where you have, all relating to working with, and I think all of you can give your answers. You can speak for the next 25 minutes, I have no problem at all of you are confident of doing that. So, let us keep that. Before going to interview, write down, just simply do not land up in the interview. Imagine something and write, keep a piece of paper ready with you. In fact, good recruiters like that, because that shows that you have come seriously prepared for that. For example, standard question, your strength and weaknesses may come, give me an example may come, how have you solved this problem, like that. Write in a piece of paper, you are allowed to carry it, you carry it. When it comes, just open, just give me a minute, sir. They may say, what are you reading? No, I came prepared, I am checking with my notes. Makes a fantastic impression, because truly you are taken it seriously, you have prepared it, right. Who will not like an employee who is preparing this very simple useful thing? On the spot improvisation generally avoid. So, that is what it is. So, summary is, you should demonstrate you have a good understanding of the subject by answering questions like, what happens when something happens. You practice, this is a very interesting thing, you have time among yourselves, you can practice. Take a very simple topic, what topic we can say, let us say reaction. You have a continuous chemical reactor, A and B goes into the reactor, exothermic reaction, heats, two products are possible depending on the temperature, because two kinetics are there, C is the desired product, D is the byproduct, comes out continuously. So, this is the, imagine this is the situation there. Now, you can ask question, what happens when the flow rate of A increases, all other things being the same. The trick is, if you are given 45 minutes, you will come to the nut, but if you are able to come to that answer in the next 20 seconds, that is a big thing. So, this comes only by practice, because in interview anyway it is a bit of a tense situation, you are, whatever you do, you are a little bit tense. So, practice is the only way. So, you have to kind of prepare yourself, what happens when this happens, this is an example, or A flow is same, B flow is the same, suddenly temperature drops, what happens? How you answer is a very good indication of how well you have understood. You get my point? Temperature drops means what, temperature will, indicator will show lower reading, is not a correct answer, right. If somebody, you ask me, A and B are reacting, exothermic reaction, steady state is happening, suddenly what happens is temperature is dropping, what happens? if temperature is falling, temperature recorder will show lower reading. If I say like that, we will say, "Arey, what happens to the process I am asking, clear." So, if you say there are two reactions, one is a desired one, other is a non-desired one. So, depending on the activation energy, if the lower temperature, which one will go faster related to the other one, I have to know. Accordingly, the yield will increase, either the desired product will come down or the undesired product rate will go up, or both the reactions will go slower, therefore, the overall conversion will come down. These are the three, but if you are able to tell that in the next 15 seconds, you know something about the subject. This is what is technical understanding. This is the kind of understanding that people will expect. Am I clear? Distillation columns are a great example. You can process control, you can give us an example, heat balance, you can give us an example, you can use it for whatever you want to say. So, create some hypothetical examples by yourself. Nobody will know that as a student you are not expected to have worked on distillation columns, but it is a hypothetical question. No? Sir, you can yourself say I want to suggest something like that. Okay, listen to me, what do you, supposing we are running a column like this happened, like that you can speak. So, in that period of time, what you know, how coherently you are able to explain to the other man is the key, that is the sum, and for which no great esoteric deep tech knowledge is required, because none of the jobs of manufacturing or PCM is going to put you in a situation where you have to think like that in the next 10 minutes. You may like to think like that as you grow older in the organization, you may like take long term views, you will think eventually, but you are being recruited for entry initial level jobs, right. So, that is what it is. Few more minutes. Other standard question that is asked is interviews, project work. They will say, have you done any project, or even if they do not ask, you may say, I would like to talk about, is there anything else, the standard question, is there anything you want to say? No, I do not have anything to say. That is an answer, okay, thank you, interview closes. But if you say you want to show about your skill little better, I want to talk about, if you give me 3-4 minutes, I will talk about my project. Why not? So, either the fellow asks you about the project, or you yourself nicely take advantage of the situation and talk about the project. Then while doing so, beware, it is a double edged sword, because in my opinion most of the academic projects are blue sky. I think so. If I am wrong, I am wrong. Even if you are stuck with that project, because it is not in your hands anyway, right? It is not in your hands all the time. Try to figure out, because it is a fact you are doing the project, it is not your choice. But if you want to talk about the project because that fellow asked you, try to figure out a practical application for it. This is very important. You can say this is a broader project, the idea is later on it will have some practical, you can tune in like that. Not that even if it is not immediately having a relevance, if you are able to connect to some practical application, that is highly valued. So, that is the usual technique. Avoid again getting into, what, this project for the first time it is being using a technique called perturbation technique. So, that is what is for preparing for the interview. I thought go through this, the best thing would be to form 1 or 2 smaller groups, practice it out, simulate a situation, somebody behaves like an interviewer where the standard questions only you have to ask, the other person must, and try to feel how relaxed, comfortable, coherently are able to come out. You yourself will know, because at the end of the interview most of us have a sense of what we have done, right. Generally we done it very well or not. If you practice more number of times and if you planned it which companies you want to do, then your chances of landing up a job, you will all land up in a job, that there is no doubt at all. Unlike my period, we were worried. Here the point is you are landing up in something which you really start liking and enjoying, deriving benefit, practice. So, that is a couple of guidelines here. So, with that I will close today's thing. Next we are meeting on Wednesday 5 o'clock, it will be an online thing. We will assemble here and the student who has, he is now of course an employee of Aditya Birla Technical Services. He will share his experiences of how he went about the whole thing, career search, and his own work experiences. Whatever you want to ask him, you can ask him questions, he is willing to answer that. And on Thursday we will have Mr. Venkatramana speak about opportunities in EPCM sector and what are that people are looking for in young engineers when they join company. So, that is what we will do. Last, complete your project, very critical. Thank you.